everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Rafael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Rafael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Good morning, Raquel. Welcome to Coaching Call. How are you this morning? Ooh, I'm not hearing you. I know, we were just speaking a minute ago. Oh, you're muted. There you go.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast.
You might have to shut that on your end.
Yes.
Good morning.
Getting the most out of their
Yeah. Good morning. Why is it that when we get together, it's like the energy just goes kablooey? I think there's just too much power between the both of us, and it's always a really fascinating call.
I'm going to mute myself. It's all you now. Yeah, you want to make sure that you shut any like Facebook or anything off like that, because
everything's off. It's just beautiful. You, my friend.
Is it me? All right.
It's just the both of us here, and that's whatever tech gremlins they're trying to take over, but they're not allowed. So
they're not allowed. They can't come in. So I'm excited to have you on the show. One of the reasons is because I personally love your energy, and I've had just a minute amount of time with you, and thank you for allowing me to spend even more time with you and getting to know you more. So I'm one of those guys that I want to know everything, but I know we only have an hour. So what I want to get to know is tell me about your childhood. Where'd you grow up? Where were you born, and who influenced you before the age of 10? And then we'll keep going down your timeline.
I'm born and raised so far in Chicago. I still live in the city. I'm actually in Chicago. Some people say they're from Chicago. They're not. They're like in Peoria, which is like very far away. I'm actually in the city. I love it. And so, yeah. The influence is, it's funny because I don't have a clear memory before I was 10 years old. And before I thought it was weird, and other people would say, oh, maybe something tragic happened. And then I met a nurse. I'm like, God, what's wrong with me that I don't remember? My first clear memory is when I swore the first time because I was scared. It was a surprise party for my 10th birthday. And I thought my parents had forgotten. It was like this whole ruse that they did. And then when I walked in the door, everybody yelled surprise. And I said, oh, crap, but not the word crap. And my mother looked at me like, what did you just say? So that's my first clear memory. And I remember speaking to a nurse who actually worked in therapy as well. And she said, oh, the reason you don't remember is because you had a perfectly normal childhood. That's actually very rare. And I'm like, so there's nothing wrong with me? Sometimes we're looking for problems where there are no problems. So everybody have these memories of when they were very young and, 5 years old, 7 years old, first day of school. I don't remember any of it. I just remembered. And now that I understand like the attachment styles, if you ever read the book Attached, which is amazing. One of the attachment styles is called secure. And it's when you're a baby in the first 9 months, right? How you're interacting with your parents. It's how you end up attaching that theory with people when you're adults. And so I was so secure because I felt totally loved and wanted and desired and protected by my parents. That's really all I knew. And so it would be like my mom said she was afraid to take me out because you know how you go like this to the kids, like, oh, come over here, cutie, so you can give them a hug, but they're usually like stranger danger. And not me. I would just jump right into your arms because I had no concept of stranger danger. So my mother was always like, crying because she's like, Raquel would just go with anybody because she doesn't understand that there are bad people out there. And so that's the way kind of I grew up until I was 10 years old. And that my first clear memory was my mother looking at me like, what did you just say?
Wow.
I'm fortunate that I still have my parents around, and I have a sister who's a year younger. And we were friends. We were younger. We were not friends really. We loved each other, but we weren't close when we were teenagers. And then after we started having children around the same time, now it's like we bought land together in Texas. We're playing the dice together in like rocking chair, holding each other's hands when we're 120 years old. So I have a very close knit family. I'm just really, really fortunate that I was in this place where I felt very loved and secure. And so that's helped me, even though like later on in my life, I would not make such decisions about my mental health that took me into some dark places. But thankfully, I'm still here.
Yeah. No, listen, I have an idea, right? And thank you for that. And what's happening is every few couple of words, there's a lot of static. So here's a thought, right? Because I definitely want to hear everything and I don't want to miss a beat. What if you stay on where you are, call it in so we can use the voice so that use the same thing. And then what we'll do is we'll take the video off the phone call and so that we can still hear your message. What do you think of that?
Okay, how do I do that?
Just go on your phone and log into the same link that I send you.
Okay.
And then because I can't wait to meet you in person, right? I know it's going to be incredible, but we're like you said, someone doesn't want to hear what you have to say, and it's not that. It's we have this whole thing called StreamYard, and StreamYard is not as nice as, for example, with other platforms. Even though Zoom is a worse platform, it's still a better platform to log into. I don't understand that, but there you are. Okay, you're in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you to the stage, and we're just going to have a blank there, right? And it's processing. So we can shut the camera off, right, on your phone, and then we're going to mute you. Now try. So I can actually hear you better. So yes.
There we go. How's this? Is it better?
Oh yeah. Look at that. There's always a workaround, right? I think it's important.
I'm one of those. We're like this. We're like, what's plan B? What's plan C?
There's no stopping, right? It's just sometimes in life there's going to be detours, but it's how do we engage in that detour? So we just took one, and thank you for playing along.
No, I think this is really important because sometimes people want to do a podcast, a live one where there's video, right? So people can see the facial expressions. So you can see that we're having a good time. And we have these erroneous ideas like, I can't do it because, this got messed up. The tech is not working or whatever lies that we're believing. But this is it's good when these things happen, especially for somebody on your platform, because you already have the standard of excellence. So if it happens for your guest or it happens with you, they're like, oh, it's okay. Don't panic. Just take a breath and then see what idea comes up and then do that. It's okay. You can fix it.
That's it. So being that we were able to finagle technology a little bit, I love the fact that you talked about your first experience being your 10th birthday, because also if you think about it, you were told it's because you had a great life. And how many people can actually say that? I got to tell you, I remember a lot of my childhood because mine was a little different. if you can say. And I wouldn't change my life, and I know you wouldn't change yours either. So you remember your 10th birthday. Who are your biggest influences? I love the fact that you also said you're very close knit in your family. Who was it your dad, your siblings, your mom? Who was your biggest influence?
I do remember a sense of loving my kindergarten teacher. She was a redhead because I was just like, why do I love red hair? And I would color my hair red. Like, to the point where in high school, I would go to the beauty salon and my hair was very long and porous. It was a couple $100 so it could be strawberry blonde. And
Mm.
I'm like, why do I love red hair so much? And my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Flores, she was a redhead. And so I loved the red hair. And then like my fourth grade teacher, it's Takadichi. She was also a redhead. And then I grew up watching Bye Bye Birdie, and Margaret, she was a redhead. So they influenced me. Like so I loved. I had a really great. I remember the sense. I don't remember the details. I just remember the sense of loving school, and that was
Mm.
because Mrs. Flores, my kindergarten teacher. Um, my mother tells a story that most kids in the first day of school, they're crying and they're carrying on, and I just looked at my mother and I said, are you coming back? She goes, yes, I'll be back at the end of the school. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll see you later. And then I just walked in. And so my mom tells a story that she's peering in the window, she's watching out for me, and I'm looking around. All the kids are crying, so I grabbed a tissue box and I'm walking around to the children, giving them a tissue, putting my arm over them, saying, "It's okay, your mommy will be back. Your mommy will be back." And I would sit there and I would color and I would get their crayons. And I was like, just naturally helping the teacher calm everybody down. So then my Mrs. Flores comes to my mother and says, she's okay. She's like, yeah, but I'm not okay. Why isn't she crying? She's like, she's going to be my little helper the whole day. It'll be fine. And so I just remember this sense of loving, again, like being so fortunate to end up having a kindergarten teacher who made the sense is like learning fun. And it was very inclusive. And, she really allowed us to be curious. And so that really carried on and shaped the way I see knowledge because of the way that I was groomed in it, going in being in kindergarten. So I think that really shaped the way I view knowledge and wisdom and curiosity and playfulness was because I had that experience so early on. And then in fourth grade, it was the same with that teacher where, I was able to help her and she just made learning so fun and using all your senses that now because of that, I feel like I'm a lifelong learner. And some people are just naturally, they're bent that way. And some of us like me, maybe we're shaped that way because of the experiences that we had. And so there's that. And my mom, she went through a lot of things that no one should have gone through. And in spite of that, she still is very generous and kind. And even though there was a lot of, friction when I was growing up, because we're actually like opposite personality types. So having that in the house, it was because of that, seeing the world differently. But it was because she had been through so many horrific things before she met my dad. And then she saw me as very naive, which I tend to still be, which I'd rather be naive and think the best of people than going in thinking they're going to screw me over. But so she was very overprotective, but I always felt very loved. And she had this way of, she's like one of those super planners, like like if you're going to go on vacation, you're getting still up at 6 in the morning because we're going to do all these things. And so it's very hard for her though to relax. I mean, she's better now that she's in her 60s, but no, 70s now. Yeah, now she's in her 70s. But growing
So
up,
she,
that's one of the things that I learned is how to be a good planner.
well, it seems like she wanted to make the most out of her day, right? And family time, and when we consider planning, right, a lot of times we forget downtime, right? And it sounds like everybody else that needed downtime except your mom, right?
Yeah, but it was so funny because she ran everything, and then she would drop us off on the weekend, like to go watch movies and stuff, and they would have these double features, and so she would buy the tickets, and then we found out when we were teenagers that was her date night with dad. So she organized it down there. So she would cook every day except for Friday. Fridays is just like, I'm not cooking Friday. So then we would go and pick up food at our favorite place around the corner. Saturdays apparently was date night with dad. So she got rid of the kids in what she figured was a safe environment. we were safe
Smart.
put. And so then we go to church. Yeah, and then we go to church on Sunday. Dad would go and to the bakery, get fresh bread, and then so funny. She would get upset with us that we would fall asleep, but she would make us these big sandwiches. I mean, dude, it was like this, literally. It was like that big, and it was filled with eggs and bacon. Of course, we're gonna fall asleep. We're like
Right.
10 years old, 11 years old. You just gave us like 100 grams of carbs. But she was very good about making sure that we had family time. So when it was warm out in Chicago, we had bicycles, and then we would like go out. We would bike all the way to the lake, and then we would have like a picnic there, and we were playing the sand, and we were playing the water, and then we would bike home. So, because my dad was working a lot, and so even though she worked too, that was one of the things. It's like she was always very, and she still is very cognizant about having a work-life harmonious life. Like, yes, work is there for us, right? It pulls out our potential, but it's pulling out our potential. But when we're in relationships, we need to nurture them and we need to protect them. And those are the things that I learned and I continue to learn from my parents. It's like, what I say is everything you want is in the gift of someone else, including yourself. And so if you want to have a thriving life, it's really learning how to communicate with people, learning to read them, learning to love them and the way they receive love, not necessarily what you think, because we receive love differently, but looking for the cues in their body, and their excitement. And even like some people, they have a very monotone voice, but even if they do, they still have this little nuances that when you're paying attention, you're like, oh, they're excited. And so I learned that from my parents, especially my mom. She's very, because of sometimes when people go through a lot of trauma, they're probably the best body language experts because they had to be. And so I learned some things from her of connecting. I mean, I have my family members who adore my mom, like they call her the second mom. That they feel very safe with her, and vulnerable, and they can come and tell the secrets to her. And that's actually something that I cultivated because that's all I knew. So that's what I do with my family, but I also do with my clients, which is why they feel like you're my second pastor sometimes. Like, I feel like you're my spiritual coach, even though I do mindset coaching. And in their heart, I'm their spiritual coach because they feel safe. But those are things that I learned from watching my parents. And so it's just like, it's funny what's second nature to us because we don't realize sometimes what's a gift. And I'm like, well, doesn't everybody do this? And they're like, no, it doesn't. So I don't know any other way to live because that's the way I was groomed by being in that environment, right? It's the nurture and the nature. So even though I had the nature for it because of my parents, they really lived it out. So it's just like a nature for me to hold space for people and to allow them to be vulnerable and to keep their secrets and to not judge them for the things that they're saying and doing, especially when they're coming to you. So, basically giving you their heart. And so being very mindful of when somebody gives you their heart, even in friendship, how you handle that.
That's so important, and I love what you talked about before when you talked about that someone who's gone through trauma truly understands body language. I guess this is why I'm an expert in body language because it's so critical to read somebody's body language because their words don't always portray what they mean. Right. So a lot of times you're looking at somebody's the way they move their hands, the way that their face sometimes speaks differently than their mouth. right? So many times, and including how they place their feet, their every little aspect, the way they get excited or down, all these different things, and you're right, it's paying attention, and that just means that you're interested. I think that when you're interested in a subject, it's easier to remember those things in that subject. What winds up happening with a lot of people is they only listen for themselves. They don't listen for the message that's being truly delivered. And so it's not just listening to the sounds, but it's listening to all the cues that are being delivered at a given time. And I love that you brought that up because that's why I personally love communication so much myself, and that's why I have a communication school as well. When we consider all the things that your mom did to make sure you guys were safe, to make sure that she spent time with her husband, to for you even to understand that it's not your job to tell someone else's secrets. I think that's huge because so many people will, and I got to be honest with you, I don't like gossip. And usually when people come around and they start talking gossip, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm good. I don't necessarily need to hear it because it's hearsay. And you know what happens with hearsay in court, right? It doesn't stick. So why do I have to go through that nonsense of hearing gossip? I'm not interested in it. So it's incredible when you grew up in a certain way and you learned all these lessons along the way. Outside, and you talked about redheads were people who made you think, but
Yeah.
besides the color of their hair, who influenced you outside of your home?
Um, I remember really just being influenced by spirituality, by the person of Jesus. When I was a teenager, when I was 13, I had that encounter with God. And then when I went to high school as a sophomore, a new school, and I met somebody, and I ended up going to her church. Her mother was a choir master, so I was there all day. Mm. It was on a Sunday. And I remember just falling in love with the person of Jesus. And that's really where I learned like who King Jesus is and what he did. And that influenced me. That's probably the biggest influence, is being able to understand like God's love for us, his grace for us, his mercy for us, and how we're made in his image and likeness. So we're created to function like him. So what does that mean? What does that look like? How do we live that truth out? And so that really influenced how I think, because when you have the master's mind, then you can, when you access it, then you're going to have the thoughts, you're going to have the feelings, you're going to have the actions that are in alignment with that. And so your life ends up being better. So things like, reading a lot of like, Solomon and the Gospels and things like that really influenced my worldview of loving people and really wanting to manifest a culture of heaven wherever I'm at.
Mm. So let me ask you, and you're talking about reading the Bible. There's so much understanding that one must get through reading the Bible because sometimes it's not straightforward. Sometimes you actually have to read into the message. Sometimes one verse could be so deep, yet you just can read it quickly like you would read a regular book, but yet you have to go back and dissect it. How important is that for you and for anybody else watching?
Well, it's called a living word, so it's technically like a person. And so it's going back to the manufacturer. We're made in his image. We're created on purpose for a purpose. And how are you going to discover that if you don't go back to the manufacturer who made you? And so it's seeing it first, understanding that you are well loved, you are wanted, you're adored, and then reading it through those eyes, because we all have confirmation bias. It's how our brain works. It's how it creates the patterns and the habits and helps you with the belief systems. So whatever you believe, that's how you're going to interpret something. So if you believe that God loves you and he adores you and he wants the best for you and he's got these big plans for you, then through that lens, when you're reading it, you can see it. You can see the love and grace. And so that's the most important thing. It's like taking some time out to that's what wisdom and revelation is for. There's a verse that says, asking for wisdom and revelation so we can know the Father better. It's a relationship, it's communication. And so it was going back to really having this relationship with God. A lot of us have been, around this thing of like total obedience and, like God's going to slap your hand. But any of us who are parents, right, we wouldn't do that to our child. And so why would we think that God would do that to us? And that's really from erroneous belief systems that have been passed down. And so I ended up having a deeper relationship as I had children and now they're older. My oldest is going to be 24. My youngest is 15. And so even being a parent, I'm like, I get to understand God better. And then in doing so, I understand myself better and my potential and my purpose and the things that I'm able to do because I understand that I'm made for love. I'm wired for success and I can see it. But this world, now we understand so many things of why he told us certain things, like renewing our mind every single day. Where now we know from neuroscience, right, and epigenetics and all these other sciences, is the how, why he told us that. Our brain is trying to process over 15 billion bits of data every single day. This is why we're told to renew our mind daily, because our eye gate and our ear gate is feeding our brain something, and our brain has to decide what to do with that. So like, how much is 15 billion bits? It is 1.875, because I did the numbers. I like numbers. Like, give me the science. It's 1.875 gigabytes of information that your beautiful brain is trying to process for you. And it's trying to process that, keep you alive, keep you contained. It doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you contained within your own belief system. So this is why, guys, like every day, right? It's like a shower. It's like motivation. You need a little something every single day to kind of keep you on track. So that's another reason that that we go on there, right? Is that to see and to renew our mind every single day, because what happens is like repetition. We know the stories of propaganda, where we had bad leadership, world leaders who, because of their propaganda, actually turned the mindset of a people for a generation. What makes us think that we will be exempt? This is how we end up coming into lives, and we wake up. That's what we have. What is they call the midlife crisis. We wake up, we're in our 40s and 50s, and we're like, what happened? All of a sudden, you don't know who you are. You don't know why you were made. You don't know how you got here. It was because of the little repetition. It's actually what I call the 1% model with my clients. I said, okay, take 1% of your day and invest it in yourself and your mindset. And so this is where I get my core mindset, is by looking in the mirror. It's like, who am I? Oh, I'm wonderfully and beautifully made. Who am I? I am made the righteousness of God in Christ. Who am I? I am made on purpose for a purpose. So that way, when the world is telling me something different, it's like, who's going to be final authority? Because a lot of people are like, there is no such thing as absolute truth. There should be. Because if you're the decider of absolute truth, there's a lies you believe about yourself that are keeping you stuck, that are keeping you in cycles, that are keeping you running in circles. So something outside of you has to be absolute truth. And we get the right to choose. And so I choose, it's like, okay, I go back to the manufacturer. Tell me who I am. And he's always singing my praises. He sings, there's a verse and songs about how God sings over you every single day. I mean, he's all into music. He's very extravagant. His language is always over the top. He's always thinking about lavish. The words are always lavish when he thinks about you. And so when you understand that and you get to connect with that, you start to see yourself differently. And because you see yourself differently, like, oh, I don't have to, but I get to create that Garden of Eden, the heaven culture wherever I'm at. And I get to co-create with the creator of all things. And he actually wants to talk to me. He actually wants to work with me. He actually wants to partner with me. And so how can you go wrong? And this is why we do these things every single day. So the 1% model is that, sometimes people hear 15 minutes and they're like, I don't even have 15 minutes, especially moms, if you have little kids, you're like, I can't even go take a shower because the little hands underneath the door, like, what are you doing, mom? Like, I'm trying to have 5 minutes alone is what I'm trying to do here. So sometimes when people hear 15 minutes, they try to do it all. But what if you reframe it by saying 1% of your day? Well, then in your body, you're like, oh, 1% of my day is not bad. I can do that. And if you would invest in that, 1% of your day is like your own personal mutual fund, except it's better because you're always going to get 100-fold return on that 1%. And it does build over time. It'll snowball. And before you know it, you start getting bigger ideas and bigger ideas, and you'll find yourself at the right place at the right time with the right people, doing the right things in the right order, because that's also important. The right order is also important. But you just organically be in that flow because you've been providing your brain something fresh to think about, something new to ponder on. And so if you do that, even for just 1% of your day, you're going to see your whole life change. And it really is a radical shift. And it's very fast because we're wired for love. This whole universe is wired for success and for love. It's the basis of it. So our bodies, we've been told we're wired for fear and all this other stuff. We're actually not. That's a lie. Now science is like, actually, no, we actually have a bias to the positive, not the negative. We're groomed to be negative, but our natural bias is positive because it's a love universe. So it's like, let's just all be nice hippies. I love what I do. And connect to that love frequency and go and love on people. And this world will be a lot better.
And you did that in kindergarten. And I love that. One of the things that you're definitely talking about is breaking the limiting beliefs that we all have. Where do you think limiting beliefs come from? Because so many people have them. They have doubt about themselves. They don't think they're worthy. All of these negativity lives in so many people. How do we break limiting beliefs? What are your thoughts?
I think it's important to understand that they come from internal and external. So we are born, right? These sophisticated AIs. We're the organic AI that everybody's afraid of. And we have these programs, right? So they're dormant until they're observed, and then it gets kicked on. So you might have a propensity, right? So you might have a leaning maybe to have a negative output because generationally, it took like 400 years to create you. You're a walking miracle. It's like between the two lines coming together, now you have hundreds of years of genetic coding that's in you. And that coding is dormant until it's observed. Something has to be observed in order for it to kick on. So think of it like hitting the execute button in the software. So understanding that sometimes people will say, well, I can't help it. I'm Puerto Rican. Some of us, not all of us, tend to be loud because we're just like loving life. We like to live life loud and fun and celebratory. And so we can say, well, I can't help that I'm loud because I'm Puerto Rican. Well, I can help it if I want to because I know a lot of Puerto Ricans who are not loud. So there's already a lie around that. Or, my father was angry, my grandfather was angry, and I'm just an angry kind of person. Well, it really traps you if you believe because you've seen it, right? Because you've seen it. And you might have a propensity, but it doesn't mean that we can't rewire it. Sometimes people, and now epigenetics is showing that, is that we're like, well, I can't help it. I was born that way. Maybe. But you don't have to stay that way because we have been given the choice of thought. And so now we're finding out that even our genes, right? Our community of cells listens to the voice of your mind. So what is that? The voice of your mindset, which means that it doesn't matter that you came in a certain way. Maybe you have a propensity to get angry or any of those negative things, a procrastinator or whatever you want to call yourself, that's not true of you. But once you understand how you're beautifully and wonderfully made, and I call it being wired for success, You're like, wait a minute, maybe I did develop habits. So how do you break it then? It goes thoughts, emotions, actions. So people think that their actions are being run by their emotions. It's not. It's actually a thought issue. So you don't have a procrastination issue. You have a thought about it issue. And we have complete control over the thoughts that we choose to entertain. We can't always help the thoughts that come up, but because our brain will offer us something. So whatever you've been pondering on and thinking about a lot the last 60 or 90 days, again, your brain is sophisticated. It's your helper, but it's also lazy because it's like, listen, I'm trying to keep you alive. I'm trying to make sure you're safe or contained. I'm trying to make sure that you stay within your belief systems. I'm trying to bring you into those spaces to make you right, because your brain always wants to be right. It doesn't like lies. It believes lies. It believes a false narrative, but it believes it's true. So understanding how your brain works is like, oh, that's what it's doing. So then this is part of the 1% model. It's really to rewire your brain, of teaching it, of retraining it. So you have a limiting belief. Like, how does that negative thought come up? And then not beating yourself up. The negative thought that you're having is actually normal. You are normal to have a negative thought, not because you are wired for negativity, but because your brain is saying this is contrary to your current belief system. So when you understand that the negative thought is only coming up as grace, if you can catch it, it's awareness. That means you have an opportunity to capture it, say something different, say, no, this is what I choose to believe now. So when it goes back to build those neural pathways, it has new information. Every 10 seconds, your brain is checking in with the voice of your mind, which is the voice of your mindset. Every 10 seconds. So that means every 10 seconds, we have an opportunity for a reset. When your brain is checking in with you, is checking in, what do you believe now? And how do you feel about yourself? And do they match? They do? Let's go there. It'll organically pull you to those places. So this is the beauty of rewiring every single day, capturing those negative thoughts, not being afraid to confront them. I was not groomed to confront them. I was groomed to like push it down. And toxic positivity, and that actually led to me trying to take my life 4 different times. I was in the process when I was stopped. And that really led me to trying to understand really what was going on with me and my body and my brain and my heart. So your limiting beliefs are only really the beliefs, your beliefs. It's only a thought that you've been thinking over and over again. And those things can be changed. Sometimes it's fast because you might have a high emotional state and an experience. And you're like, oh, and we've all had those experiences where something happened and we're like, oh, that completely changed my mindset, right? Like you'll never go back. But most times what happens is that it's, again, right, repetition. So the more you repeat something, the more your brain will be like, okay, is this what you're thinking? Is this what you're allowing in? Is this what you want? I will go ahead and help you. And it's really as simple as that. And what happens is that because it's simple, people don't do it consistently because we want to earn it. We want to toil. We want to hustle. And that's actually not how we're made to succeed. We're actually made to go and flow. So we can create what we want through first creating it in our mindset. Because what's happening, we are building the capacity to receive, hold it, and then expand it. We see this with lottery winners. We know that they go broke, a lot of them, between 3 and 5 years after they win all these millions of dollars. Why? Because they never took the time to develop the capacity to not only hold wealth, but to maintain it and expand it. Everything really is mindset. So one of the things I say all the time is words matter because they become matter. Literally. They literally become matter first in neural pathways. And then they start to show up in your thoughts. They'll start to impact your emotions. They start to run your actions. And 95% of your actions are automatic. Only 5% you actually get to catch and do something with. So if we know, and everybody knows this, we've been so groomed with the information, 95% of my actions are automatic. Then why aren't you doing something to create purpose So the 95% runs automatically in your favor. And that's good news, because that means you have complete control. You don't have control over what other people do, but you can choose the thoughts you're going to take about the circumstance. You can choose the thoughts you're going to continue to think on. And sometimes in the moment, your emotions are all out of whack. But if you know that if I can just continue to rewire my thoughts, my emotions eventually will follow. It's not an if, it's when, because that's how we're wired. Your emotions will line up. And when your emotions line up, so will your actions. So it's like, just receive grace. Receive grace and understanding how you're wired to succeed. Do the 1% for yourself every single day, and you will see progress. And celebrating those wins. There's a scripture people like to say that, do not despise small beginnings, but they don't say the rest of that. How God celebrates your small wins. Like if God, the master of the universe, the creator of everything that's good and perfect, celebrates every single small step that you do, why aren't you? Instead of despising the small beginning, he tells you not to despise it. Why? Because he's celebrating you.
That's
and
right.
This is the other reason when we go back to why you read the Bible, when you understand, it's like, oh, yeah, people always say, don't despise it. And then everybody's, you're bitter because things are not going the way you thought, you're resentful. Instead of coming in with the mindset of, no, I'm not going to despise it, because every small thing that I do, whether it's the 1%, whether, I talk to God while I'm in the shower, whether if that's all I do today, that's enough. That was enough, because it's putting me on track, and that's worth celebrating.
Every day, celebrate every day. I love how you talked about that words matter. And with that in mind, I want you to take a look at this.
In a world where words shape destinies and connections forge futures, this November 22nd to the 24th, Speaking Prowess brings you the ultimate hands-on workshop. We have a lineup of some of the most influential communication experts in the industry. These are the voices that will guide you on a journey to enhance your ability to connect, influence, and succeed. Sifu Rafael, master instructor and founder of Speaking Prowess, blends communication and leadership to help you reach your full potential. Dr. Oliver T. Reed, the international multi-best-selling author and motivational speaker, known as the Writing Coach, will help you craft your messages with precision. Jose Escobar, a nationally recognized speaker and leader, will guide you in mastering personal development and leadership skills. This is more than just an event. It's a game-changing, skill-building experience. Walk away with communication prowess that transforms your personal and professional life. Speaking Prowess, where communication becomes your superpower. Reserve your seat now.
And therefore, words do matter, right? When you consider the messages that we allow in, and the messages we put out, the thoughts, and you talked about how when you say something, it means something, right? But when you sometimes say something without thinking about it, and then later on you're like, oh, I didn't mean to say that. Oh, well, you said it. So guess what? You can't unhear something, just like you can't unsee something. And that's why communication is so powerful, yet people don't invest in their communication skills. They don't invest in the way they treat another person, because everything comes back. No matter how you think it won't, it will. I had a meeting this morning with, I'm having work done in the back, and it's about taking some of my extra space and giving this up and giving that up. But sometimes, even in communication, in order to get our message out, we need to give something up in order to receive something. So we may have to give our time. We may have to give our experience in order to get something back. And a lot of people don't understand the concepts of give and take, not only in communication, but also in leadership. Talk to us about, you wanted to talk about unlocking abundance through leadership and communication and, and our limiting beliefs. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on all of those things that truly matter.
Yes. When it comes to leadership, the person you start with is yourself. And it's really being about integritous with your own word. So to yourself, if you say you're going to be there at 7, be there at 7, not at 7:05, not at 7:10. Why? Because these are the opportunities that you're training your brain. Because what's going to happen is that when you want to do something bigger, your brain, we end up creating these self-sabotaging things ourselves. There is this thing of like, actions don't matter, words don't matter, actions do. Well, people who say that don't understand that the actions are actually based on the words that they've been thinking. It's all words. We get married with words, we get divorced by words, we buy things with words, we get credit by words. This is a word planet. It is a word universe. Words matter. And when we are saying that words don't matter, it's really from a trauma place. We've been burned by people's words. We've been hurt by them. We know people that have been said things when they were young, and they were still in the harvest of that negative word. It's understanding that because we're made in the image and likeness of God, our words are containers of power. There is no, my favorite neuroscientist is Dr. Caroline Leaf, and she said, there is no thought that is innocent. None of it is. So the thoughts that we're having, that we're choosing to take and entertain, they're going to either create a cycle of life or death, right? Not necessarily somebody's going to die, but something dies, it withers, right? And this is part of the communication process, is understanding how to communicate. And you can breathe life and make your relationships thriving. Like all my relationships that I have that are close to me, they're thriving. They're not surviving. We thrive together because we read each other, because we take the time to understand each other. And so we're thinking about leadership. Sometimes, we want to be that person, but how are we showing up for ourselves? Ooh.
Yeah, it took you off, but your voice is still there. So when you get a chance to log back in, but you can still keep talking though.
Okay, good.
I'm glad that we're on the phone too, right?
I know, right? This is why we do Plan B. We have a Plan B. So it's this thing of leading yourself in order to lead other people well. And it goes back to loving, right? That's why we had this huge push around self-love, because people are recognizing I was not loving myself first. I was not feeding myself first. And even we know the example that people love to give, which is the oxygen mask in the plane. How are you doing that for yourself every single day? Are you using that 1% to feed yourself? Because that's how we're always leading someone. Sometimes, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. So mostly, for the most part. And sometimes, they're having an event and they're like, only one person signed up. And I said, that's a whole human.
That's right.
You can actually lead them in such a way that they bring transformation into their life that ripples. So we're not even seeing the ripple effect, because we're just seeing, again, that small, despising the small beginning. It's like, no, when you do the small things well, right? When you start doing the small things like it's not a big thing, when the big things come up, then it will be easy for you. But it's practicing every single day your own internal integrity. What are you saying yes to and following through? Maybe there are a lot of things you have to say no to. Being able to understand really what is your mission. And if anything's outside of what you're being called to do in this season in your life, the answer has to be no, if it doesn't match. Sometimes we fall into this FOMO. If I don't do it, then it's never going to come back again.
Right.
No. If it's meant for you, again, having that mentality, whatever is meant for me, I'm going to know. You'll have a peace about it. You'll have a knowing about it. And even if you want to do it, if you're having this checklist, maybe not yet, it's okay. We can't do things in fear because now we're making decisions out of fear. And fear is not a powerful, it's powerful to destroy. It's not powerful to build. And so we're coming in with faith, with love, with openness, with optimism. Our decisions are going to be better, including communication, including loving our people, including loving ourselves. So while we're doing this stuff, we need to think about, okay, what kind of leader do I want to be? And if you're upset with people around you, like, well, all these other people are not, they're not showing up right. Well, maybe you've been shown that so that you can be the exception to create the new standard. But we don't like to create the new standard sometimes because that means that we're going to have to really take ownership over the things that we're thinking, over the people that we're hanging out with, over what we're allowing to go through our eye gate and ear gate, what we're choosing to entertain in our thought life, because no thought is innocent. None of it is. Every thought has a chemical signature. So that's why the good book says that, that laughter is like medicine. And then we're finding out, oh yeah, that's right. Because when you're laughing, your brain is your drug dealer or your medicine man. And it's like, oh, you're laughing? I have a chemical signature for that. And it starts to create all these beautiful chemical signatures and floods your body into chemical bliss. So you can put your body in chemical bliss or chemical chaos just by how you're thinking, because that's how powerful your thoughts are. The words matter. Communication to yourself matters. And when you're communicating to yourself in a loving, positive, uplifting way, and it's not for you to put your head in the sand, but understanding that there's, right, like even the hiccups here, right? There's always a solution. There's always a way out. But when you're in a calm, peaceful state, you can see. There's a scripture a lot of people like to quote, which is, God is doing a new thing. Can you not perceive it? There's a way in the wilderness, waters in the desert. The issue isn't the way. The issue isn't the water. It's the perception. Your perception is based on your communication to yourself, what you're choosing to believe. And it's a choice. It doesn't feel like a choice. And this is why you come to people like, Sifu or myself, coaches, people who are experts in what we do, because we can help you supercharge you and help you to run faster there and have the rewiring process faster. Can you do it yourself? Yes, you can. Through that awareness. We have coaches in book form, in podcast form like this, right? There's so many ways for you to get what you need that you can't say, well, I don't have the money for that. Well, most people, I think the last stat I saw was they're on social media 153 minutes. What if you tied that back to yourself? Yeah. So what if you tied that, which is 10%, back to yourself? There's your 1%. So you're like, I don't have that 1%. You have it on your social media. And some people are like, well, I don't watch social media, but they're binging Netflix. They're binging Pinterest. They're binging books because they like to read. And it's not books of self-development. It's just like pleasure books. So what if you tied your pleasure time, your downtime, back to yourself for that 1%? And then you can find podcasts like this. Podcasts like this exist to help clear your mind and put you back on track. But it's a choice. You're not going to be forced to take your life into your own hands. And that's the good news. I was talking about, it seems so simple, people don't do it. It's because that's how God levels the playing field. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter how disenfranchised you are. The way people will see me in society, I'm a single mom, 3 kids, Puerto Rican woman. I'm a triple, disenfranchised person. But I don't see myself as disenfranchised, so I don't show up as disenfranchised. I don't see myself as somebody like limited because I'm a woman or a single mom or a Latina. Those are my superpowers, not my limitations.
Ooh, I love that. And that's so important for people to understand that is your superpower. because a lot of people do put limitations even on themselves because society put that limitation. One, because maybe you're Latina. I'm Latino, so yes, but I don't say to somebody, "Hey, by the way, my name is Sifu Rafael, and I'm Latino." No, I don't do that, and I don't say, "Hey, by the way, I'm Sifu Rafael, and I'm 6'1". No, I don't do that either. Hey, I'm Sifu Rafael, and whatever. I don't put those tags on me. I allow people to judge me based on my actions and the words I use. And a lot of people will never, when they're not, uh, hey, Danish, how are you? Thank you for joining us. And James and MD and everybody joining us, we really appreciate you being here. But when we allow society to tell us who we are, we're missing the point. We're totally missing the point. We need to judge who we are. And you talked about it earlier when you look in the mirror and you go, man, I am beautiful. That's it. That's where it starts, right? You need to
Mhm.
have those words of clarity, and the only way to have that clarity is through a clean lens. Maybe your mirror is dirty. Maybe your glasses are dirty. One of them is dirty if you're not looking in the mirror and saying, "I'm beautiful. I have so much value to give." Maybe one of those is dirty, and it's time to clean it up. So we're basically coming to you here, both Raquel and I, to let you know how beautiful you are, and don't forget it. And listen, she can do it as a kindergartner to go tell other people, "Hey, you know what? You're going to be okay." She's telling you now, and I'm telling you now, you're going to be okay, but you have to believe in you because there's so many people in this world that are going to put you down. And if you keep listening to them, you will be down and you'll stay down. Raquel, I am thrilled that you took the time to come over, and I still feel like I've only got the skim of the surface of who you are, and I still want to keep getting to know you more. I'm excited that you took the time today. How can somebody get? I'm going to give you a 30 to 45-second um, plug so you can plug yourself and how people can reach you and what you do for someone. And your time starts now.
Hi, if you're new to me, my name is Raquel and I'm your GPS for success. So if you would like to connect with me, I'm always doing like some kind of event or freebie. I have all kinds of things. So you can connect with me at yourgpsforsuccess.net. And people come to me when they're burnt out or on the verge of burnout or they're just filled with worry and fear and anxiety and doubt. And literally, that's my one breakthrough now. In a few minutes, it will dissipate. And then I will show you how to keep that state. So if you're feeling any of those things, then come on over, get into my email list. I'm always doing some goodies in there for them too. And just allow me to love on you and to really serve you in that capacity.
Mm. Wow, beautiful. And I love what you said, love on you. So many coaches, all they're looking for is the bottom line instead of the person, right? They're looking, oh, yeah, I'm only going to take you if you can afford my program. But yet, sometimes, I don't know if you do, but I do. I probably give away two of my coaching programs absolutely free every year, and they're not cheap.
Mhm.
But I give them to people who I think would benefit, and it's not about the finances. So I love the fact that you said I'm going to love on you. Plus, you have freebies, and I love how you said come on my email and let's connect. So go ahead and connect with Raquel. It's yourgpsforsuccess.net. And what can I say? I am thrilled to know you, and I can't wait to get to know you even further. Thank you for today. It has truly been extraordinary. And we did plan B, which is always another good way to think we can't let anything stop us from doing what we need to do. And don't ever let anyone tell you you can't. Raquel, thank you.
Yes. Thank you for allowing me to be here with you.
Yeah, absolutely my pleasure. Did I say pressure? Pleasure, right? But with all things, even a diamond needs pressure in order for it to come out beautiful. So you've been pressured and you are beautiful. So thank you, Raquel. Have an
Thank you.
exceptional day, everybody. We look forward to seeing you next time.